Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm your host, Diana King. Today, I have a very inspirational actor. It has such a great story to tell, and I can't wait for all of you guys to hear. Today, I've got Sheldon Neal on the podcast. Welcome in, Sheldon. Thanks for coming,
Yeah.
and thanks for being a guest. And today, I did want to acknowledge it is 9/11, 23 years after the awful attacks on the Twin Towers. And I just wanted to acknowledge that it is 9/11, and I am thinking of all of the families and just our nation. I loved how after all of that happened on 9/11 in 2001, I watched it live, and a lot of you did, and experienced that united feeling that we had after, as we united as a country and kind of put aside our differences in every aspect, not just politically, but every aspect in life. We put those aside and we came together as a nation. And so I just hope that we as a nation can continue on to put those things aside, especially right now. It's an election year. So let's really just unite together and acknowledge the fact that we are in this together. So I wanted to start the podcast in that way. So thank you, Sheldon.
Amen.
Yes, thank you. And before we get into anything exciting about, your inspirational story and everything, Sheldon, I did want you to tell us a little bit about your vanity plate story. I thought that was really cool. It was featured in the LA Times. And for any of you that don't know what a vanity plate was, because I didn't, it's a license, like a personalized license plate. I might have been the only one that didn't know that. But tell us that story, Sheldon. I think that's cool.
Years and years and years ago, probably 95, maybe 96. We used to do a lot of off-roading and camping. I had a 93 Pathfinder. So we were up in Big Bear driving around on trails and stuff in the mud and that. And when we got back to camp, my younger son, there was some mud on the side of the truck, and he inscribed in there, "My dad's mud." So I kind of got on him. You shouldn't be doing that to the truck. You're going to scratch it, blah, 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 blah. Got home, I was watching the truck, and there's, all this desert pinstriping down it from driving through the brush and all that.
Yeah.
So I felt bad about it. So I ordered the vanity plate Dad's Mud and put that on, and it's now on its fourth vehicle, I think. So that's been coming up on almost 30 years of Dad's Mud. And I'll see, these are now in their late 30s. Their friends will still come up and say, "Oh, you're still rocking Dad's Mud, huh?"
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then I've got a couple more Nissan Patrol that I have Eek Patrol on, and that I have Eek Vega, and there's stories behind those as well.
Well, that's so cool. So you mentioned Big Bear. Did you guys camp a lot in Big Bear as a family?
We kind of camped all over, a lot in Big Bear. We did a lot out in the desert. We used to go to Anza-Borrego every Easter with some friends and camp out there, do a lot of hiking and off-roading. And gosh, we've camped a lot. We did a trip to Colorado where we were, hiking 14,000 feet peaks and that sort of thing. Stayed up in San Gorgonio to do kind of training hikes, at 10 or 11,000 feet. So you're not wiped out when you finally get at that higher elevation. Yeah, we did a lot of that, a lot of off-roading, a lot of camping. Then as the boys got older, they joined Boy Scouts. So then we got into a lot of backpacking kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
3 or 4 day backpacking trips, which was pretty interesting.
Wow. Okay. My husband grew up doing a lot of camping and things like that. And I didn't grow up that way. We were more like hotel people, like that would go to the beach type people. So we didn't camp. But when I met my husband, I went on a couple of camping trips, not in a trailer, just like a little tent with some like sleeping bags, and that was it. And it was pretty intense for me.
We kind of ran the gamut. Started off car camping in tents. Then once the kids got older, like I said, we did more backpacking, that kind of stuff. And as went off on their own, then we bought a big toy hauler trailer that we could put our Jeep inside, but then take it out, and it served as like a camper.
Okay.
We've sort of given that up, and now we're more bed and breakfast kind of types.
Well, now that the kids are older, it's like, let's just make it easier now for us.
Exactly. And now that we're older, that sleeping outside is not as attractive as it once was.
And all the hiking gets harder and the backpacking gets harder.
And we still go out and do hikes, but it gets really bad vertigo, so we don't really do very adventurous hikes anymore. Before we were married, we went to Kauai once and did the Nepali coast hike, where you go down 2 miles, and then we went in 2 more miles inland to a big waterfall. You had to do like stream crossings up to your chest, and
Oh my
pretty
God.
adventurous, and jumping across to jump over streams, and to the waterfall, and saw one of the elf guys, or actually guys back then anyway, guys that just kind of live back there in the rainforest,
Oh,
and just whatever fruit they can find, and back there all by themselves. And
oh my God. That's kind of
yeah, we
that's
were looking at the
crazy.
waterfall, and all of a sudden this guy just comes running by, and it's like, oh,
He's like, welcome,
uh-huh.
welcome to my house.
Yeah, welcome to paradise.
Welcome in. Anyone's welcome. Come on in. That's awesome. That's pretty cool that you
And
guys got to do all those things as a family. That's
I
cool.
didn't grow up camping. I grew up on a farm in central Illinois, so I was outdoors all the time. Once we got married, and especially when we had kids, my wife was pretty adamant that that's a good thing for them to learn to do. And
Yeah,
very true, because they both still will go out camping with friends, and really really appreciate nature and the outdoors. And so I think that's a very valuable gift we gave them.
for sure. I mean, I see that in my husband, he grew up that way. So he's very outdoorsy, fishes, he likes to do all those things. So yeah, I think it's great. My kids will grow up doing those things, because he'll take them and I'll tag along, but he'll be the one teaching them all the things kids can grow. I think that's a really great way to grow up.
Hmm.
But so how did you go from that and now get into acting? Tell us a little bit about that transition there.
Like I mentioned, I grew up on a farm. Farm, went to college. I was not a good student. I lasted like a semester at Illinois State, and then did another year at junior college, and decided college wasn't for me. Went back and farmed with dad for like 5 more years as an adult. My heart broken, and decided I didn't want to be a farmer anymore. So sister was living out here. So I moved out here with her for a while, did several odd jobs. I was a wheelchair mechanic for a while. I sold the LA Times door to door. I did phone sales. Actually got into information technology as a programmer. Kind of moved up the ranks there into management, investing along the way. Eventually built up enough of a nest egg, and my job got to where it sucked enough that I was able to retire. First year of retirement, I kind of just laid around and did nothing. I didn't have to do anything, right?
Rightfully so.
And when I started noticing that, my time on this earth is getting shorter and shorter, I don't want to do anything.
As we are reminded often as we get older.
Also, my mom was suffering from dementia, and eventually got really bad with it. So I wanted to keep my mind sharp, doing something that would challenge me. So we do lawn bowling. I do that about 4 times a week. And then South Conservatory was offering a daytime beginning acting class. And this
Oh, okay.
was late 2018, I think. So I did that just kind of on a lark. And we're working on scenes, and the instructor told me I was charming and that I should use that in a scene. So, immediately my head swelled, right? Took her class again and enjoyed it, and then went into like an acting two. One of my scene in that, you did a monologue and then one scene. It was an 8-week class, right? So you worked on the scene for 8 weeks with a couple of scene partners. At the end, in our final performance of it, the scene partners came up. What a great job I had done. She said, "You gave me so much to work off of." Yeah, my head swelled up. Yeah.
That's a great compliment, though, at the same
Yeah.
time. It really is a great compliment.
And
That's
then
huge
I
because not a lot of people can do that.
signed up for that class again, and then the pandemic hit. Everything shut down. I stayed out for 6 or 8 months. South Coast Rep was offering classes over Zoom, but that didn't seem that attractive. But then I saw a screen acting class over Zoom, so I started taking that during the pandemic, because that seemed a little more appropriate. We enjoyed that for probably over a year. We were finally able to go back into a live situation, which was pretty fun because there were 4 or 5 people that were in the Zoom class that now showed up live at South.
Oh,
I
cool.
walked up to the teacher and I was like, "Wow, you're so three-dimensional." This is
You're shorter in person.
um, but then the last session I took with him at South Coast Rep, some time left. He just kind of opened it up for any questions. So I asked the question, if we're spending the money for professional headshots, because I had been like looking around on backstage and that sort of thing. Always wanted headshots, if you're going to apply for anything. So I asked him that question and
Mhm.
he said, yes, it definitely is. One of the women in class kind of leaned forward and she said, I'm a photographer and I do headshots. I booked a session with her, headshots came out good, I think. She thought they were really good. So showed them to her agent. Her agent contacted me and said, I want to talk with you. So I did an audition for her and signed with them. And that's like a year and a half ago. And
Nice.
they're just kind of random things have come. There was a music video I did. There's no dialogue in it, obviously, but one point in it where it actually a great song, beautiful song, but a really kind of sad video. At one point where in scene I'm sat down in the kitchen and she says, okay, this is sad. And she's crying and I'm just to like stare straight ahead, with a sad face. And she said, no, I want you sobbing, crying. And I'm like, oh man, I've never done this before. I was able to just kind of get in the moment and eventually it presented itself.
Mhm. Mhm.
Say it was the very sad story in the song. So I was able to get wrapped up in that moment, which
Yeah.
was pretty exciting having never done that. There's been few other things that have come along, scenes that are out there on my IMDb page. I get maybe like a couple auditions a week. That's fun to do.
That's great. I mean, yeah, a couple auditions a week is like you're winning at that point. They're so hard to just land an audition as is. So, this takes a long time. It's like, you kind of have to find your way. So it's great that people are noticing you, and like the agents contacting you.
For that class where I asked the question, then the teacher he had taught during the day at Chapman University, and then he would do the
Mhm.
class at South Coast Rep at night. So he lost his gig at Chapman. It wasn't worth driving down. He's like up in Culver City, so it wasn't worth driving down anymore just for the
Yeah.
South Coast Rep class. So I took improv for about a year. Interesting story. The improv teacher at one point we had to out evaluation form, right? So he came, gave us the form, and gave us these pins that say, "Every day is a gift. Enjoy the present." Okay, which is a good philosophy. I said, "Oh, it's a pin. Thank you," and so I kept the pin.
Little double meaning there. Love that. Little
Yeah.
irony.
He was kind of taken back, and he was like, "Yeah, go ahead, go ahead." And a year of improv, some of the people that I had been in class with previously and kept in touch with, that just doing a class at his Culver City studio, gotten back into that now about the last year. So I drive up there once a week.
And you're in Irvine, right?
Right.
So you're like in the OC kind of. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. 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 Okay.
So driving up there, because the class it's from 6 to 9. So driving up there's like, an hour 20, hour and a half, depending. Driving home's under an hour. So
Yeah.
that's
Traffic.
it's
Yeah.
it's not horrible. And when we were doing the class at South Coast, it was more like scenes, having scene partners and doing scenes. Though he's got the class now structured, it's more audition practice. So you're doing your individual scene with just a reader. I think is very valuable because one thing I have learned, self-tape audition is a very different thing than acting on set. Um,
Absolutely. Two
yeah,
different worlds, two different skill sets.
exactly.
It's definitely different. It's because when you're doing your auditions at home now, we're doing the technical side of it that we never used to have to do in the room.
Hmm.
And now we have to have our whole setup, like you do, you have your blue background and we have to have all the things and know how to do that and then take that and then erase all the other stuff and then just focus on our acting when we're on set.
Yeah.
It's two different worlds,
And
really.
and to me, that's all I've ever known because I never, that I didn't really start till after the pandemic. So
So it was
always,
always self-tape for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Although I have done one audition for Craftsman Tools, and I got the notice at like noon. Okay, you need to be in LA at 4 o'clock, right? But drove up there. The audition was just to lean against the wall, pretend like I was on a creeper, looked at me and said something, and I was like, "Oh, everybody knows that," and that was it. So then I drove home and never heard anything more. That's my live
I drove an hour and a half for this.
that's my live audition experience.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it is. I remember when I was a kid, I used to do live auditions. Obviously, this was back in the day. And yeah, you just go in there and even as a kid, they would tell you, I guess it was different I was a dancer. So my auditions mostly were dancing. So and dancing's way more cutthroat. So you're in that room auditioning and they would point at you and they'd say, you, and you stay, everybody else bye, thank you. And then like you just leave and then that was it. And then you don't get any feedback. You don't know,
Yeah,
but it's like that now, except, now you don't get to see who got to stay in the room. You don't know what they look like, what their skills were, how good they were, what choices they made, so it's like you don't see the other self tapes coming in. It's a little bit easier to take the rejection, I guess, when it's just a self tape, you send it in and you forget about it,
yeah.
as opposed to,
I think that's something you have to want and learn, is that you do the audition and now your job's done and move on. Because
you have to create a mindset too. So how do you continue on and keep a good mindset, and stay mentally, healthy with all the rejection?
I don't get much rejection. I get a lot of nothing. Using the self tape, and then
Well, the nothings or the rejection, whatever, you know what I mean?
I read a lot of things. I listen to things. A lot of test things. There's some people that I really enjoy listening to that talk about like the three cornerstones. You have to work on your craft. You have to work on your confidence. And I forget the third one, but basically it's your mindset. I try to myself, positive thoughts pretty much every day. If I'm, like I said, I go lawn bowling 3 or 4 times a week. If I'm not lawn bowling, then I'll usually go out for like a 3 or 4 mile walk in the morning. While I'm out there, I've got something playing, some kind of a broadcast playing that talks about the craft of acting or mindset, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And we also, we talk about that kind of stuff in the screen acting class a lot. Has a lot of experience, and then that's also nice to be around other creatives. The other people in the class I have a lot of respect for, have learned a lot from them. The main things being how to be equal with mistakes that you make, because or how well the lines, you're going to blow it at some point. And other actors that I really respect in class there and just completely blow their lines, and they have figured out how to work through that. That's been really valuable. Me to watch has allowed me to myself to make mistakes and not give a doubt about them.
Yeah, and not dwell on them, and it's not the end of the world. It's okay. There's going to be another chance down the road. That's part of it. Yeah, it's just learning how to fail and learning how to get up again and learning how to, succeed after that. And that's, where you build that strength and you build that great mindset without even realizing that you're doing that for yourself.
Yeah,
It's
because
there's a lot of rejection in this business, and it's really hard to not get in your head and think, am I not enough? And what's wrong with me? Why am I not getting, and it's really hard to get stuck in that rut. And so I do ask a lot of people on the podcast, how do you keep that mindset going? And everyone kind of has the same, way of doing that, is listening to some self-help books, or, taking a long walk and enjoying nature and just kind of being with yourself. And also having a life outside of acting, so important.
right,
A lot of people, I'm guilty of this as well, is pouring everything into it, day in and day out and day in and day out. And there comes a point where you realize, I need to have a little bit of a life outside of this, and I need to let it go a little bit. things fall into place on their own. Yeah.
I have a wife that keeps me in the present. She won't allow me to get too involved in the whole acting thing. I have to travel quite a bit, so we're usually gone. That's why I missed the showing of Alliance Game. Was we were up in a winery dinner in the Central Valley. That's
Were you in San Luis, Paso Robles?
Los Olivos.
Okay, okay.
And kind of in that area, but more like Santa Barbara kind of county. I tell people, it's a pretty sad song. I missed my exclusive movie showing because I was at a wine dinner in Los Olivos. Yeah, that's
Wow, I mean, which one? Which is great that you mentioned that. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Tell us a little bit about the film Alliance Game. It's won some awards at some film festivals. That's pretty cool. I mean, that's a huge career milestone for you.
Oh, I got it actually in Hawaii. We had taken our two sons and our granddaughters to Hawaii for a week. I just notice of a casting call. Had a little ring light with me, and part of it required you to be gagged and do some emotion in the scene. Just got a towel out of the bathroom and kind of wrapped it around my head and just kind of did the thing and sent it off and didn't think about it and got the
Yeah.
notice back. Yeah, we'd love to have you. On my
Wow.
piece, that's been probably a year ago. Talking to some of the other people had actually filmed the bulk of the movie a year prior to that and had just been
Okay.
working on it and then came up with some additional scenes that they wanted to do to have more impact. They have the script for it, but I haven't made the time to read the whole thing yet. Didn't see the movie maybe.
Yeah.
It should be a
That's
really good film. The co-writers, colleagues together in Delaware. So then they both relocated to Los Angeles. I know he did. He may spend time kind of between LA and Delaware. I'm not absolutely sure, but it was a fun experience.
and the film festival was in Delaware, right? That you
Yeah.
entered the movie. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't go back.
I was wondering how that kind of correlated. So the writers, okay, got it. So
Yeah.
they met and worked together in Delaware and then okay. That's amazing. That's the way to, I had Sean Perez on the podcast last week. And we talked about the importance of film festivals, and this is exactly why, and you enter them in, you never know what will happen. And it's just a great opportunity for us, we actors to get our foot in the door and get our work seen,
Yeah, and I've got
interact with people.
did background work on actually USC film, The Seed of Truth, about in Stalin's Russia, scientific policies were not based on science, but rather on political. And at the time, he like jailed all the people that his beliefs, or, of his sins, that sort of thing. I won't go any further than that because I don't really know enough detail about it. But this film, it was a short film, was about that whole time. I just did background work on it, but we went to the Holly Shorts Film Festival weeks ago, I think, which is actually a feeder to Oscars for short films.
Wow. Okay.
So that was fun.
Amazing.
Got to sit in there and watch like 6 short films that were all really quality. See the people I had worked with on the film. That was great fun. And then we've got at the end of this month is Burbank International Film Festival that I'm volunteering for
Amazing.
last year. So I met some nice people there. Nice to hook up with them again.
Yeah. Great networking opportunity.
And then there's and this shows some place I heard, everybody wants to be nice to the most important person in the room, right? Well, the most important person is everyone.
Mhm.
Just to show you how kind of random things can be, there's a Newport Beach Film Festival that's in October, I think. The women I lawn bowl with, we were just kind of talking about this stuff, and she said, "Oh, the guy who runs that, he started it 30 years ago. He's a friend of mine." And so she has put me in touch with him. So I sent him a note, offering to volunteer and just asking him some questions about it. So, just kind of a random contact there.
Yeah, and that's how things just happen. It's just, you have all these opportunities, and when you're prepared, you can seize those opportunities, and it may seem small now, but once you keep doing this and you get your name out there and people see your work, and it's so amazing. I just love it. I love connecting with other creatives like that. I think it's so important to just be active, create your own content, do what you're doing, go volunteer at award shows. I mean, do what you can to, just be in the mix, basically,
Yeah, and kind of generally a nice guy anyway, but it is important to in mind that everybody, everybody in class, everybody on set, everybody, most important person,
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
dealing with them. Thing recently, uh, performed TV show,
Hmm.
and the sound guy quite a bit because I have hearing aids, right? Was asking me about it because they're Bluetooth connected, and we were talking about that some, and he said, you could have people feed you lines through those to think about, but it would probably confuse me more than help me because I'd get caught up in listening
Yeah,
and
listening too much.
lose the character, I think. So
Yeah, that's like me. Some people like to use that teleprompter app,
yeah,
and I tried it once and I couldn't do it. It was too much for me. I'll just be off book, just yeah. I understand for really quick turnaround things for sure. Like no judgment there. Use the teleprompter app if you have to. Like, an audition comes in and it's due in 5 hours. You have 5 pages. Yeah, use the teleprompter app. But
well, and two, and this is something that I'm learning in the screen acting class more and more. It's about looking at, and especially if you have a quick turnaround, pick out the most important pieces of the scene, work on having those at least
Mhm.
memorized somewhat. Then you can also, and I've watched some of the other actors do this very well, and a glance down and pick up a line and come back as the character. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of tricks like that you can do. I
Yep.
think, especially in the self tape environment, there's a lot of times I have pieces of paper stuck all over the ring light.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. You have to have your places, your people. I use
Yeah.
the sticky note for my
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
all the time, making sure I have my eye lines. Yep,
There's my
exactly.
little
There
guy.
you go. Yes. Yes. Have your eye lines. What else did you say? Something about what was it? Oh, also mapping out your emotions if you have something that's a really quick turnaround, making sure that you read through that script at least like 10 times, map your emotions out, figure out your beginning, middle, and end, and get that. And just doing that will help you become off book a little bit easier. But yeah, picking out your emotions, making sure your starting emotion is on point. Usually you can like work around not being off book or being on the teleprompter app, but that's what they'll notice is those emotions. You're just how deep you are. Are you that character? Are you bringing justice to that character emotionally?
Yeah, I to really struggle with lines and would get really frustrated with it, because I can memorize a lot of stuff, but then once you get up there to start to say it, it goes away. I remember
Hmm.
sitting in class and other actors were doing their scenes right. I could just feel my lines slipping away from me. But I did
Yes.
read a book and took an online course and that kind of thing. And yeah, they talked a lot about focusing on the lines so much, but focusing on what the scene is trying to present. Like you
Yes.
mentioned, the emotional swing of it, the arc of the scene. And so I've been focusing more on that. It is a lot easier to learn the lines.
Yeah.
If you don't hold yourself exactly to the line, to kind of get the message across, makes it so much easier. I
Yeah.
thing for yesterday was a scene with a father talking to his son who's struggling with it. But they mentioned, he probably suffers from dementia and comes into the scene like really angry and going off on this other thing. And then he's talking about something he did as a child. And then he says he's got to go to work. Well, then, dad gets really upset and sad because he feels like his son doesn't care about it. And we go bad. Well, then he gets all happy and continues his story of what he used to do as a child. And then at the end, he slips back into his sort of angry phase, repeating what he started with. And just
Hmm.
kind of putting those points out there and, the emotional swings there, lines come much more easily.
Mhm.
And I even, I messed up on a few of them, but we just kind of moved on through it. And when I
Yeah,
watch the tape back, it's like, yeah, this works. I know that line's wrong anymore because presented in the scene, I think really works.
correct.
Yeah, we'll see.
Absolutely. And Amy Linden, I say it every time. Amy Linden is a great coach to do this. She's got those 15 guidelines. I swear by them. I mean, even if you can't take her class, she has a Udemy course. It's on Udemy. It's like a website with courses that people can. It's a recording, and you watch it you over and over again.
No,
Anytime I get a script, I go through that Udemy course, I watch it, and it's all about those emotions. It's just, she just presents the scene study art of it just so well, and she maps it out for you. It just makes it so much easier. But it's all about those emotions.
now who
It's all about
is this?
mapping them. Amy Linden. Amy Linden. She's with Hollywood Winter Circle as well. She's TMFA. She's one of the mentor coaches. She's also an actress herself. She's a great coach. She does monthly scene studies, actually weekly, but monthly classes. She's fantastic. I can send you her information when we're done. Actually, she was on my podcast too, explaining the 15 guidelines. But she's just fantastic. And she does do Zoom classes as well. So it's online, but it's fantastic. And she just, ever since studying with her, it's becoming off book. And I feel like my work has kind of upgraded to that next level where I know where to find my emotions now. I know how to make those transitions really sharp and really noticeable. It's like
Hmm.
she just really, I don't know, she's a saint, man. Amy, you're a saint. Gosh dang it. She's so great. I can't even, you would love her. I'll give you her information. She's
Yes,
so great. Well, she's amazing.
involved with the whole winter circle thing a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Was an event or party. I don't know if you saw about that.
I did see that. Yes, for with Wendy. Wendy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
went to that.
Oh, did you go to that? Did you
Yeah,
have fun?
which was, yeah, it was great fun, and it was interesting because there was all there that was also in my acting class. So that was kind
No
of
way.
seeing her. So I have been working my way through the initial stuff. Just got through that. So yeah, there's a lot of things I need to explore over there.
Oh, yeah, you'll love it. It's so helpful. There's so many things that you are going to be able to apply now to your package, and there's classes 3 days a week. It's so,
Mhm.
so great, as you know already.
And I think it's interesting to hear different people, because I talked to
Yeah.
a few people evening and talking about, I mentioned some of the things my had mentioned. Disagree with it entirely. I would never do that to an actor, kind of thing. I mean, it wasn't anything mean, just kind of
Yeah.
a difference in philosophy. They're probably both valid points, and I think in journey to get people's perspective on it, I think just kind of broadens you can work with, which is very
Yeah.
valuable.
Yeah, and also you'll learn at HWC there's going to be a lot of information that might contradict what you already know, and you kind of just have to pick and choose what works for you
Hmm.
and apply it how you apply it and bring yourself to that scene and choose from what your teachers have taught you. And that's what I do, because a lot of times in any industry there's going to be contradicting opinions, points, ways of doing things, right?
Yeah.
So we individuals just have to pick and choose what works for us. So yeah, I did a lot of classes with different people, different schools, different coaches, just to see where I fit best. And once you kind of find that way, then you'll notice your work starting to grow big time. And it's really satisfying. And it's great that you've stuck with this scene study for so long. It's so great. You don't feel like you're making improvements in the moment when you're in the thick of it. But when you go back to look at your old self tapes to the ones you do now, you're like, dang, wow, I didn't even know that I was really making that much progress until you really watch.
I think why it takes so long and we need to constantly working on it is hear something, you can read something, and get it here takes a long time to get it down here, and
Yes.
especially in front of a camera or on set or whenever.
Yeah, in front of all the people
And one of the
that are on set with.
yeah one of the people I listen to pretty regularly is it to learning to drive a car. So when you first get into a car and try and learn it, there it's just overwhelming. You got to steer, you got to use the accelerator, you got to brake, you got to pay attention to traffic, and it's just, how can I ever do that? And now
Yeah,
you think when we're driving, half the time you don't even remember the drive because it just becomes second nature. And notice that makes me feel really good that a lot of the stuff I read or listened to a year, 2 years ago, now it just kind of comes as second nature. That also
mhm,
makes it very exciting to me that stuff that I'm now hearing and reading, eventually somewhere down the road, I won't have to think about it. It'll just kind of come out of the
it
instrument
just comes
naturally. Yeah.
naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's literally that is such a good analogy. Love that's so true. It's so true. You really just don't think about it when you get in a car, and that's how it starts to become for us. You kind of just get behind the camera and it'll just come naturally at
Mhm.
some point eventually. I love that. What's your favorite genre, really? Like if you get a scene study for 1 week and you have to do a self-tape at the end of the week, what kind of a scene is your favorite kind of scene?
Right now, the comedy kind of thing. Always loved comedy, just as a watcher. So the stuff I've done in classes and that sort of thing has been more serious. Like playing the weird evil kind of guy, which is great
Mhm.
fun too. The last few weeks, we've been doing more comedy scenes. In some ways that's a lot tougher because you have to keep the pace and you have to stand the timing a lot more. I'm still learning how to like build the tension in the comedy and then
Yeah.
releasing it, which is where the comedy comes from. One of the things that was suggested to me, recently started doing, you mentioned binge watching. The most recent thing, almost embarrassed to admit it because watched this when it first came out, but watching some episodes of The Big Bang Theory
Okay.
because the teacher talked about the interaction of the characters there, and how you mentioned like Johnny Galecki is usually like the straight man, where name Sheldon Parsons,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I was drawing a blank myself. I was like, "Oh my god,
where
who
he's
is
he's kind of the wacky off the wall kind of guy.
that?" Yes.
Says Johnny Galecki gets as many laughs being the straight guy if you really watch it. I've been started to watch that some just to watch for the interactions in that. Uh,
Yeah.
at the time,
Yeah.
I thought it was you know sophisticated humor kind of thing. It was the kind of stuff my mom watched, which loved it because there was a Sheldon in it, right?
Typical mom stuff, you know?
Exactly. Um, he would tell me because she was still healthy when it first came out. You should watch this show, and I'm like, no, that sounds kind of dumb. But now that I'm watching it, it actually is pretty entertaining. And
Yeah.
it's not highbrow kind of stuff, but it is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's good to watch sitcoms and things like that to learn. You kind of not to watch the storyline or anything, but just to watch it to see what they do and how the timing is and how quick. Yeah, like there's a actually I was looking into this. Scott Sedita has comedy intensive that he teaches. And then once you take the intensive, then you can continue on to the sitcom class. And
mm,
which would be great for you, actually. I'm just now thinking because it's a 1 day intensive and it's in person, LA, and you go through he has a book. It's called The 8 Characters of Comedy, I believe is what it's called, and which is a great book. I ordered it recently because I thinking about taking that intensive. And then you can continue on to, it's a prerequisite for the sitcom class, which is, I think, once a week or something like that. But a lot of people have done that and they've really done well in, commercials and getting a lot of comedy, comedic parts. And I'm not trained in comedy at all. So I'm excited to do that. I usually just do scene study, or I've trained for a long time in Meisner at Playhouse West. So I have like a craft, but I never really got into the comedy thing. I've only done improv a couple times, but
Yeah.
I'm like a naturally sarcastic person. So I feel like I want to use that.
Yes. I see the world as a funny place. So the situational comedy kind of comes natural to me, but to do
Uh-huh.
prepared comedy is kind of a whole different thing. That's why I want to learn more about it, because there is it's funny stuff. During
So much.
doing the improv class, the guy that who taught it was kind of a no holds barred kind of guy. First thing he would do in classes, he would get us all in a circle, and he would, okay, what did you do this week? What did you do this? Just kind of go around, which was cool because you got to know everybody. The people I went to that class with, we still keep in touch and are actually really good friends. Would were telling what you did, what you did over the last week, he'd be making fun of you and just kind of, I can do it too. Yeah, he's kind of like we're in the Marines. He's going to strip away all our dignity, all our self-worth, all of that, and then build us back up, right? Because he never really got to the build us back up part. He just kind of kept stripping away. But what that does is, and when you get up to do an improv scene, you don't really care. You have nothing to lose.
Right. Yeah. He's already taken it all away from you.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That was educational, but it's still feel like I ever really got good at it. Yeah. Who knows?
It's comedy's really hard. Look, it's a hard. You were saying earlier that you felt like some of those comedic scenes were a little harder, and they are. It's all about contradictions in comedy. It's clever. Comedy's very clever, and it's really hard to, that's why I feel like Scott Sedita's class is really going to be super good, is because you'll learn how to like get to those moments and the punchline and the timing and how to really say it. It's so interesting to me, the comedic world, but it is so hard.
And like I said, I think I would have a knack for it once I understand the
Yeah.
mechanics of it more. I mean, some of the people I lombo with, when they out that I also was an actor, they were like immediately, you should do comedy. You're a really funny guy. Yeah.
I've had a few people tell me that too, because usually sometimes I'm not like a I'm just very sarcastic and I can come back with a quick joke real quick, but that's about it. Let's talk about what's next for you, Sheldon. What do you think is next up for you in this journey? What do you hope to see in the future for yourself?
Have my own comedy series, of course.
Well, while we're on that note, why not? Yes, that would be amazing.
I'm kind of still at a point where just the learning is really exciting to me,
Yeah.
and it actually took me a long time to be able to say, yes, I'm an actor. That's especially coming from my background as, I grew up a mile outside of a town of 400 people in central Illinois. The world I grew up in was very small. I didn't make it to Chicago until I was like 22. It was very small and very isolated. So even, just moving to California was a huge thing for me, and having some success out here in the business world, which was a very different thing than what I grew up with. And then being able to get to this world and have some success. Just, I mean, I'm still kind of in it. I pinch myself sometimes.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Because this was just a dream at one point, right? It's just a thought in your mind, something that you saw, but could it really actually happen?
Yeah.
And you're making it happen.
Yes, I was actually a girl that I was in improv class with up at the screen acting class. We were all so we took a picture and shot it out on a text to a lot of the other people that were in the improv class. I pulled out my little dot card, which scan it. It gives your contact information and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Had her scan that, and yeah, and then you can You get my contact information. There's my Instagram. There's my IMDb page. And she was like, an IMDb page? And I was like, well, yeah, of course. I have to tell you on that, you have to do Sheldon M. Neal. There was
Your middle initial.
a Sheldon Neal back in the early 2000s, did a couple of his own films.
I think I know who
He's
you're
got the
talking
Sheldon Neal IMDb page.
about.
If you want
Okay.
to see me, you have to do Sheldon M. So
I might have typed in the middle initial because I
I
think you
think
told me.
I sent you a link, I think.
You did.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. Why?
So that's one of the things I have in common with Michael J. Fox. If we use our
Okay.
middle
There
initial.
you go.
Yeah.
At the end, I want to learn a little bit more about my guest. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions just so we can get to know you a little better on a personal level. Well, I guess we already know this, but what was the last show that you binge watched? That was going to be one of my questions.
Yeah, most recently was
Big Bang
Big
Theory,
Bang
right?
Theory, which of course then they did Sheldon, right?
Yes.
Now in its like sixth or seventh season.
Uh,
And I had some people on my agency Facebook page saying, Sheldon, he's not really that young anymore, isn't it? Is he going to do like a middle-aged Sheldon? And
right.
so I wrote back, well, if they ever get to old Sheldon guy, right?
Love that. If you could have any celebrity as your next door neighbor, who would it be and why?
Actually pondered on this one for a bit. Murray came to mind just because I love Murray and he's a funny guy. Kind of think if I live next door, that could be trouble. We'd get run out of the neighborhood at some point.
You might, just a little chance, just a little chance.
Yeah. Finally came up with Jay Leno because
I love Jay Leno.
he's a funny guy also. Sense of humor. He seems like a really down to earth guy.
He does.
Gearhead. He loves cars, which I am also. We would have that we could sit and drink beer and talk about.
He has so many cars, right? Vintage cars. I mean,
Oh yeah,
like, how many do you think?
300-400 probably.
Really, that many,
I
you
think
think?
so. Yeah.
In the hundreds?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Oh
they're
my
in the
gosh.
hundreds. And
Wow.
I don't know if you heard this, and he still works on them some. He's got a full time mechanic and probably other crew that takes care of it, but he still works on them some himself because it was a little over a year ago, I think. He was working on one of the cars and had a gas leak that caught him on fire and like
Oh my gosh.
degree burns on his face and that kind of stuff. So he was kind of out of the spotlight for a while, but I think they did a lot of skin grafts and
What?
he came out of it okay. Yeah, check it out. It was
I'm
probably
gonna have
half
to check that out.
people said what happened, and he was just like, yeah, I was stupid.
Really, Jay?
But I think that just kind of shows his personality that yeah, I was
Yeah.
working on the car, I did something stupid, I caught myself on fire. He's fine. Yeah. So yeah, I think it'd be fun to kind of some time with him.
It would be really fun to live next to Jay Leno. That's for dang sure. He's pretty cool. He would be funny. In the beginning when he would do his little like monologue in the
Uh-huh.
beginning. Oh my gosh, every single episode I was so excited to hear what's he going to say because it's always something relating to what's going on in the media right now. He's going to say something funny about, one of these actors or huge, singers, whatever. It's just so funny. I miss his show a lot. I miss it.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was great. Well, I just have one more question for you. We'll just end it with this. How do you want to make your mark on this world?
I think this has happened to some degree already. My kind of small town background sort of conquered several different worlds, if you will, that
Mhm.
at
Absolutely.
certain points in my life seemed impossible dream kind of thing. I think my most recent journey is one of the bigger examples of that. And I also I do have a handicap. I've got a missing radius bone in my right arm, and I spent the first 20 or 30 years of my life kind of ignoring that and trying to hide it from people and that sort of thing. As I've gotten older, I maybe be an example, if you will. You can kind of do what you want to do if you just work at it and figure out a way around whatever obstacles you're facing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you're a huge inspiration, and your story about that I think is so amazing. And, I just look up to you in that way for your resilience and strength, and to keep yourself going and to inspire others that if you have any type of a handicap or anything, that you are worthy and you are just as deserving as anybody else, and just keep going. And, honestly, things that we are insecure about the most, we only really notice them. Nobody else really notices it except us.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was told that all my life. You believe it, kind of don't. It really hit home with me. My older son has a short bone. So when he was born, his hand was kind of curved in like that. But as he
Hmm.
grew older and older, it's like barely noticeable. To give him that speech at some point, that he'll think about it more than anybody else. Explaining that to him, just kind of home even more to me. So
Right, right. I just
that,
admire you for your strength, really.
that's something I have to give mom credit for also. Nurse. And um, dad was a farmer, obviously. He was a lot more protective of me, where mom was like, no. Like there was one time I was riding my bike, right? Probably 10 maybe, and hit a big crack in the sidewalk and went flying over and scraped my arms up and everything. And dad was like, immediately, we're going to get rid of that bike. No, you get back up on that bike and ride back up to the house. You'll be fine.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her. What a strong woman. That's a
Mhm.
strong woman right there. Because I would be the dad. Getting rid of the bike.
Uh-huh.
It's going in the trash right now. My son fell in the trash.
Yeah. And then growing up on the farm, we had to repair our own equipment. You had to do all your mechanical work. You had to do the farm work and figure, ways around it. And then I've also worked as an auto mechanic. I worked as a wheelchair mechanic. I still
Hmm.
do a lot of,
Yeah.
I work on a lot of the equipment at the lawn bowling club. And I have to make adaptations, because I don't have the strength in my right arm. You figure out ways to get around it.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's so magnified when we look at it at our own self, but you're truly an inspiration, and I am so glad that you came on today. I think your story is so great, and I'm so excited to follow your journey.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
You for
Stay on. I'm going to stop recording, but stay on so I can give you that information too. Thank you for joining Blonde Ambitions podcast. Bye.